Today on DrWhitty Today, we welcome Jordan Costin, a licensed psychotherapist, advocate, and creator of Brave Spaces for Healing. Jordan's clinical credentials span anxiety, trauma, and couples work, and his career is driven by a fierce commitment to LGBTQ+ youth and underrepresented communities. A former IT professional who answered a deeper call to service, Jordan founded Safe Space Nova and continues to lead public conversations on inclusion, resilience, and mental health equity. He presents nationally, serves on the One Fairfax Community Roundtable, and brings therapy that is compassionate, culturally attuned, and action-oriented. Get ready for honest guidance, clear tools for healthier relationships, and a restorative conversation that meets both the head and the heart. Listeners and viewers, both here and at home, please welcome Jordan Costin and DrWhitty. Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Uh-oh, it sounds like we have some sound difficulty here. We don't know. Give me 1 second. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, great. Thanks. I apologize. Now you know why I kept asking, could you hear me? All right. So we do apologize for that. Welcome to the show. This is DrWhitty Today. How was that intro? Did you hear it?
I did.
All right. Is there anything that you want to say to the listeners and viewers that we may not have covered during the intro?
No, I'm just happy for the opportunity to speak. I look at these types of conversations as a way to inform and share information so that a person can feel on the other side of it that they have something tangible that they can take into their life and to help improve it, right? So that's what I do every single day when I sit with clients. And this is an extension of that. So for those who are out there listening, I hope you have at least one thing that you can take away from this that will be helpful for you or maybe even somebody that you know and love.
All right, great. Before we get started, I want to say thoughts and prayers to those, everyone affected by the mass shootings, one in North Carolina and the other in Michigan. So I just want to say that our thoughts and prayers go out to uh, everyone that is impacted by these senseless acts of violence. They should not occur, but unfortunately they do. So we just make sure that we send up our thoughts and prayers. All right. So, with that said, welcome Jordan to the platform. This has been a long time coming, so I'm just glad that you answered the invitation, and I look forward to the conversation that we're going to have tonight.
Absolutely.
All right. So, um, your last name starts with a C. So, with one word that begins with a C, how would you sum up your week? Or I
Oh,
should say, how did your week begin? Because we haven't even gotten through it yet.
yeah, this being Monday. Wow. I don't know if I can come up with a C word. I almost need to look that up, but I can, without necessarily tying it to the letter C, I can say that the word that comes to mind is actually gratifying. So I love the work I do. I'm sure we'll talk more about that. But although it's Monday, it's just the first day of the week. I've already sat through 6 client sessions today, and that to me is gratifying work. I love what I do, and being able to sit in this chair or across the sofa and help clients. And that brings me a sense of peace in knowing that I'm making some change in the world, no matter how small. So unfortunately, I can't come up with a C in the moment. That may be a little bit more time than I would need, but I can definitely say that the beginning of this week is definitely gratifying in terms of the work that I'm doing, and I'm appreciative of that.
All right. Maybe by the end of the show.
Possibly.
All right. All right. Well, I tell you what, without further ado, we're going to go into the first question. So let's see. What's the first question? All right. So please discuss your transition from IT to psychotherapy and how your sense of purpose reshaped your career and clinical perspective.
Oh, absolutely. I love this question. So it kind of goes back to the very beginning. Well, not very the beginning, but some time ago when I was in college. Came to the Washington, D.C. area specifically to go to Howard University. And what was posted on it was a flyer that was posted in one of our dorms or school buildings that asked for tutors for a local charter school. It said, hey, any college student that has some time, could you please volunteer that to help these students get to that graduation date? I was raised with the ideals that to whom much is given, much is expected. I did volunteering in high school with my family, and I really enjoyed that experience and being able to give back. So I just looked at that as another opportunity to do so. I was paired with an LGBTQ youth. It was by happenstance, and helped him throughout the program, finishing and getting towards the end of his high school career. And once that ended, I kind of caught the bug, if you will, and I just kind of kept going from there. So went through that, graduated myself from Howard University and stayed within the Washington, D.C. area, and decided I would continue to volunteer in some mentoring or tutoring capacity. So I joined another organization called Gordon's Kids that would take youth from a certain part of the city and bus them all the way up to Capitol Hill. We sat in those meetings that people will often see that they have all these hearings in, and we're eating, we're doing some homework. We're just talking about life and giving assistance and support wherever it's needed for the youth. So I did that for a few years, really enjoyed that. Then I went to grad school, took a little bit of a break and moved over to Northern Virginia during that period. Coming out of grad school, did some more volunteering, specifically in Alexandria where I was living. I did some mentoring with a youth program. And then I sat with myself for a little bit and said, like, is there something else I can be doing? I love that I've been mentoring and tutoring now for a good number of years at that point, but is there more that I can do on a deeper level? And I took some time, some self-reflection to say, okay, going all the way back to Jordan at 14 years old, what I describe as a queer Black boy in Atlanta who just felt like he didn't have a sense of community and knowing what that looks like. Being able to connect with others who have the same type of emerging feelings, same type of sentiments and experiences that I was having. No community, no support around that. Not feeling there was somebody I could talk to my own age or older. So, and thinking about that, I said, let me take some time and look around the Northern Virginia area, again, the area in which I was living, and say, what type of organization reflects that or targets that population? And I saw it didn't exist. I said, what? This does not exist. So just to let you know, while I'm going through and doing this volunteering and mentoring, I worked in IT account management. The short and sweet of that is simply I started at the front desk of a company straight out of college, and I was doing really well at that job. They said, you want to try account management out? And I did. And I just kept going with that career. So that was my day-to-day life. But volunteering was, of course, outside of that, was something that was fulfilling for me. So when I thought about it and I said, this organization doesn't exist. Now, this is a phrase that you don't hear too often, but I call myself this overly ambitious person. I said, okay, there's a need for this in this space. It's so vast, Northern Virginia, right outside of DC. And all it takes is just a few clicks for people to see that those who are part of the LGBTQ community experience anxiety, depression, and suicidal ideation 3 to 5 times more than heterosexual peers. So social supports are really, really necessary, right, to combat those type of mental illnesses and issues. So I spent 2 years of my time saying whenever I was on vacation, I had my iPad at the time and a PowerPoint presentation. What would this organization look like? I kind of put together a presentation. What would our target audience be? What would our mission statement be? What type of programs will we have? And after 2 years, I actually pulled the trigger. I said, this is something that I really believe in. And if I'm going to take a chance on doing something, it's going to be this. Worst case scenario is it doesn't work out. Best case scenario is that there's an organization that is built that helps these youth. So that was March 29th, 2016, coming up on our 10th year here. I said, yes, let's do this. And started off, extremely grassroots, me and 2 other board members, and then a few friends of mine helping from an operational standpoint, standing up programs. Very slow start, and just kept building and building and building. Mind you, during the day, I was still an IT account manager. I made it to the point where I was managing a team, but I got to the point where I found the work was just very unfulfilling. While it was something I was good at, it wasn't something that at the end of the day, I felt really kind of poured into me. It was, I did a job. I could feel great about doing that and being able to, of course, maintain what was my bills in the day-to-day, but I wanted something more. And when I thought about the work I was doing at Safe Space Nova, not only was I the founder, by the way, I was the executive director. So whenever I was not working my one job, I was doing the other. I said, how can I shift this? Like, how can I spend majority, if not all of my time and make money, ideally, doing this type of work? And you kind of peel back the layers a little bit. And this is what social work truly is. If you go and you become trained in that specific area, that helps further the knowledge and skill set to run the organization effectively. And then also, if a person so chooses after having that background and education, they can go on towards licensure, become a therapist. And I'm a lover of therapy. I think it's something that everybody can benefit from. So it was like a win-win for me. Okay, well, I become a social worker, means go back to school again, but, a little bit more education. I love knowledge. So I went back and in 2018, fall of 2018 in particular, is when I went back and started school again. It was a master's program in the area to say, I'm going to become a social worker, still working during the day during IT, still running the organization. And in summation, just got through that program. And towards midway, somewhere in the program, I decided it was time for me to kind of leave the IT world behind. It suited me for what I needed for a good portion of my life and kind of help establish me and again, help with the finances of day-to-day living in an area that has a pretty high cost of living, but kind of to shift my focus into the social work and therapy world. So came out of school and was doing the social work stuff and then the therapy as well. And then eventually decided I would just shift my focus to therapy because there are not a lot of people that look like me who sit in this position as a therapist. So as a person who identifies as Black and part of the African-American community, as a person who identifies as queer or gay and part of the greater LGBTQ community, to be able to speak to that from this space, I mean, it's tremendous. So I decided that would be the focus of my work, and that's what's brought me here with the nonprofit work and the therapy.
Great. It's important that you talked about, the time it took you to basically, formulate or put together the concept and the ideas. So it wasn't something that, you just haphazardly decided you were going to start, but you were very intentional about the organization that you wanted to erect and use to serve the community. So thank you for that. All right, next question. So what are the core principles of trauma-informed care, and how can listeners apply them practically in their relationships?
First is let a person open up about their experiences in their time. Not in your time, not anybody else's time, but their time. When we're talking about these traumatic experiences, there's something that often people haven't talked about at all. I can't tell you how many times as a therapist I sit in my chair and there are things that are being revealed to me 6 months, 8 months, or a year after a person's been in therapy because of guilt, because of shame, because of judgment. So it took time, and we let that happen as therapists, and that's so beneficial. Next thing, reminding people that you're a safe place. It's something I constantly say. I don't care how long you've been in therapy. This is a safe place. This is a place of no judgment. I want you to know that you can say what you want with the 2 exceptions, which we as therapists are ethically bound to. If you're going to harm somebody else, harm yourself, I have to let other authorities know. But otherwise, this is a safe place. So when you feel comfortable, you can disclose how much or how little you want to. And just to not overemphasize, but just state again that this is a non-judgmental place. Sexual assault, domestic violence, just 2 extreme issues that are very prevalent that people don't tend to talk about rather because of the judgment. So when people are starting to feel like this is a place where I can do that, Jordan seems like a really good person where it's not just is he my therapist, but I can trust in what he's telling me and I can finally let it out. Those are some of the centerpieces and hallmarks of working with somebody around trauma.
Exactly. I like how you said it's not your time, but it's that person's time when they feel ready, comfortable to talk about whatever it is that they want to talk about. Because, like you said, you might have been talking to them for 3-6 months, but if they're not ready, you can't really force them. They've got to be ready to talk about it and to also do the work. So we can never underestimate the speed of trust. So once that trust is there, I'm pretty sure you see a difference or you've seen differences of when either you or somebody wasn't necessarily trusted versus when you were trusted.
Absolutely.
All right, so next question, supporting LGBTQ plus youth. Provide some essential strategies for creating affirming, safe, and brave spaces at home, in schools, and within community settings.
A lot of what the hallmarks that were just mentioned when it comes to trauma-informed care actually work extremely well with creating an affirmative space. So again, going over those and just maybe adding one or two more. So letting somebody come to you in their own time about their identity, right? So we often hear like people feeling owed our identities in relation to who we are when it comes to the LGBTQ community. I owe you because of my relationship to you. You're a sibling, you're a parent, you're a cousin, you're a grandparent, you're a close friend. I owe you my identity when it's quite frankly something I may have been contending with for quite some time. I have to come to the truth when I feel like it, and I will give you the truth when I feel prepared to give it to you. So there is that. There's affirming that this is, again, a safe place, right? So in high schools, what that tends to look like, and this may be more of an antiquated term because the terminology that's used to describe these clubs have generally changed over the years, but a gay straight alliance is what we called it before. And again, it has different nomenclature or verbiage in terms of the name that's used, but it represents a safe place for LGBTQ youth to go and be their authentic selves without fear of judgment. Making sure that you're saying and reiterating that this is not a judgmental place. Again, something that correlates with trauma-informed care, as well as creating an affirmative space for LGBTQ youth. And then lastly, just coming to this notion of what unconditional love is. And this is for not just about school and spaces. This is just in general. Oftentimes, we as an LGBTQ community contend with this idea that we are raised in a household where there's unconditional love up until a family member or a person that is close to us says, well, no, there's a condition I didn't tell you about. It's called you being LGBTQ. So it's about affirming that there is unconditional love, because in those types of spaces, that's where people will want to share their truth about themselves. If they feel like there's a condition, why would they do that? Especially youth. They're concerned. Safety is a humongous concern within our community, especially with youth that I work with and speak to who are not in any way, shape, or form communicative about that identity to their parents. Please note, I did not say out to their parents. I said they don't communicate what is their truth. So it's important to affirm and state that this is a place or I am a person who gives you unconditional love. Regardless of what you're going through, I am here for you. And that provides generally that space, that foundation of trust to say, okay, at the very least, I can start to question, is this a person I can confide in when it comes to that truth?
All right. Thank you for that. What does, I think you touched on it a little bit, but just give us some examples of what unconditional love to the LGBTQ plus community. What are some examples of what that might look like?
Well, the first is just actually saying it. There's oftentimes, and I've come into contact with this quite frequently in my work in both the nonprofit world as well as a clinical therapist, where it's this unspoken thing. It's my child should just know. Your child just doesn't know, because in a world that is so chaotic, that speaks negatively on our community, what you think they should know can get lost in the sauce, if you will. So being able to say that and be able to show them different experiences, being a part of different events even. So if you view that your child may be part of the community, it's not about directly asking them. Again, it's about expressing this unconditional love and just asking them like, hey, you know what? I have this friend, or there's a pride event. Do you want to just go to that? Just for the record, and you don't have to make this it's about you and what I'm suspecting about you. It's no, this is about showing and affirming love, unconditional love, because this is a community that is more than deserving of it. That's an extension of what you're showing, that unconditional love. It's like, let me go to a pride parade or a pride festival. In most major cities, it exists if you look hard enough. And quite frankly, you don't have to look that hard. But just doing a quick Google search, that'll be out there. And that's another way to show what is that unconditional love.
All right. So let's talk about relationships a little bit with the next question. How does clinical anxiety show up? How does it manifest in partnerships and friendships? And what are some practical tools for regulation and support?
So let's break down what anxiety looks like, because a question I will ask, people assume that they have anxiety, but the truth of the matter is that everybody has anxiety. If we think about, we go back to caveman society, right? There is a bear or there's a wolf. The anxiety is what is built into you from a survival standpoint. You need to fight, you need to fly, or you need to freeze so you can survive the situation. So having anxiety is a survival tactic or strategy that we innately as human beings are born with. The concern comes when that anxiety is not managed and or regulated, and it is something that happens on a regular occurrence because of a trigger. So anxiety, all of us have it. It's just a matter of how much and how often we are experiencing it. People think of mental illness, depression, anxiety as examples on a binary of either I have it or I don't. Well, guess what? At least when it comes to anxiety, you have it. When it comes to depression, you may experience a small amount, but again, that's not something that raises to the level of being something that is causing concern or that is taking away from your life. The prevalence of the symptoms are not something that you cannot get past on your own, just taking a little bit of time. But we're talking about anxiety, and it's mild, moderate, severe, the three different levels. So we're talking moderate and we're talking severe. Those symptoms are pervasive. They're affecting your daily life. And what anxiety looks like often a lot of people is extreme fear, worry, dread, and being overwhelmed. Oftentimes there's a trigger, but what we tend to focus on is the behavior itself. I'm anxious. Well, what's the preceding thought? Because in the work that I do as a therapist with clients is we gotta get to what the thought is, because the thought actually comes before the behavior. And if we can disrupt the thought, more than likely we can get this behavior to lessen. We can even maybe eradicate it at some point. So starting with the basics. Okay, if you feel like you're anxious, what does anxiety look like for you? Okay, so if it looks like fear, if it looks like worry on an extreme basis, okay, well, what are the preceding events? Let's talk a little bit more about that. What's happening where you find that you're highly anxious, right? You're on edge. And then from there, we start to break down what the thoughts are. I am fearful that I'm going to mess up on this test. This is a huge test that's going to determine the fate of my college career. It's SATs. That's a really good example. I'm going to get highly anxious because I have this fear of failure. I have this fear, extreme fear. And something we can use to combat that, this is a tactic or strategy that's worked through in therapy, is, well, what's the evidence of that? So if there's a preceding thought of like, I'm fearful of failing, well, what evidence leads you down this rabbit hole, if you will, of thoughts that say that, you're going to fail? How have you showed up for the test? Did you study for it? Have you put in the work? And oftentimes it's, yes, I've done everything I can. Okay. Do you feel like you are best prepared when it comes to having a routine all the way up to the test, making sure you're going to get rest? I do. Okay. So you set yourself up for success. You're having these thoughts, but they're not facts. There's nothing factual that's going to point to right now you're going to fail. Is it a possibility? Absolutely. But there are a lot of things that are possible in this world. But what have you set yourself up for? And let's focus on that. What that does is take you from that, I'm experiencing severe anxiety, to the very least, maybe we've ticked down to moderate. Maybe we do some more work together. Come up with some other techniques and breathing techniques that can even be used. We can evoke that as another tool. We take you from that moderate all the way down to mild. Knowing when you're anxious, knowing the preceding thoughts, those are super key when it comes to not just anxiety, but a lot of mental illnesses in general. And that's what we break down when it comes to the work that I do with my clients in sessions. Hopefully that answered your question.
Yes. Thank you for that. I like what you talked about, what you think about first, and, that it all comes down to, somebody being triggered in the thoughts, and then, the actions follow. And so I just thought that was particularly interesting. Today, actually, I had my first therapy session. I finally decided to, go to therapy. And one of the things that the therapist said was one of the most dangerous places to be is between our two ears. And so what he was saying was, because when you're in that space, the only person you can listen to is me, myself, and I. And depending on what you're thinking about, it can be very dangerous because you're just listening to yourself. And so he just talked about um, how important it is that when you wish to work on yourself, or you decide you want to work on yourself, that you have to um, learn how to trust somebody else, because you have to basically, start to trust somebody else to help you to unpack everything that may be going on, so that you can become that better version of yourself. So that's what I was thinking about when you started talking about the triggers and the thoughts, and then eventually that happens.
Another tool that's in line with what you're talking about, how I generally phrase it, is called a reality check. So if you spent so much time in a space, and oftentimes we're conditioned to think one way, we've had decades of experience to say, I am going to look horrible if I wear this color. I'm going to look horrible no matter what I do. If I put on yellow, I'm going to look like the biggest lemon walking around. No matter what outfit it is, I'm going to look horrible, horrible, horrible. And that's what my mind, I have a predisposition to go that place, and that's creating anxiety. So a reality check is, what, if you feel like you can't, maybe take a picture and send it to somebody you trust, to your point, like a best friend. Say like, hey, best friend, I'm ruminating on this thought right now. It's causing me anxiety. So if you can, I just need a quick reality check. Here I am in this yellow outfit that I really thought I liked when it was on the rack, but I have this thought process that's going on. And the best friend says, you know what? You look bomb. You look good. Trust in me. I'm going to give it to you the way I would give it to you, in terms of just being straight and honest and straightforward. And so it's stepping outside yourself and stepping towards your support system.
Exactly. All right. Thank you for that. Now, all right. So we talked about anxiety in relationships. Let's move to sex and couples work essentials. So, what are some common relationship pitfalls you see in practice, and can you provide some evidence-based techniques to restore connection?
We're going to start with something that's extremely basic, and nothing I think would be shocking for any couple that's out there and that's paying attention, is communication. Communication is the basis for a strong foundation when it comes to relationships, and the frequency in which you're doing it, and what you're discussing, and being as transparent and honest as you can with your partner. As a licensed clinical therapist, I work with the entire gamut of age range, but I also work with couples. And this is the first rung of what we have to tackle. We don't get past that and get to a better place. Nothing else in terms of the work that we do together will be impactful. So evidence-based is, we're going to start very simply with something called check-ins. As simplistic as that is putting some time and saying we're being as intentional as we can about making sure that we're communicating. Something that often happens and people don't think about this. So a relationship has kind of two sides, if you will. There is the roommate side of things, and there is the intimate side of things. The roommate side of things, if you've been together for quite some time, is the day-to-day of making sure if your children, they are fed, and then you got the groceries for the house and the bills are getting paid. And the other part, the intimate side, is just going to work itself out. I'm going to let you in on a little bit of a secret. It doesn't just work itself out. You have to be as intentional with that approach as you are with other aspects of your life. Because if you're not, you are just living in this relationship strictly on the roommate side of things. So what I encourage is that we start with the intentionality of saying, let's just have check-ins. Well, we should be communicating on a regular basis. That's often the pushback I get. We live together. We have children together. Yeah, but that's called the monotony of life. If you are waiting for the moment to just automatically happen after you've had a full work day, after you've had other responsibilities outside of that, quite frankly, it just does not happen as often, if at all. That is just a human experience. So it's making a space for it and saying this is important, that intimacy. And intimacy is just being able to connect without all of these other things pulling at you, right? So if that means being intentional to the extent, I mean, the furthest you can go, and then intentional is saying we have to make sure that we have time away and outside of this bubble world that we've created. But something that's a little bit more in arm's reach or accessible is just saying, let's take a look at our calendars, the jobs we do and the responsibilities we have, and say, here is some time that we carve out. Let's make sure we are coming into that space just ready to communicate about what we don't on a day-to-day basis. The roommate side will get handled and typically does, but let's talk about the major issues. Let's talk about concerns. Let's talk about whatever we know that we don't typically do on a regular day. And that even means, hey, you know what? Going and writing down things that you know that you want to talk about and do it beforehand. Again, that's that extension of that intentionality. So we put something on the calendar. Let's say it's Thursday at 8:00 p.m. Okay, well, there's 4 days, 4 days before you get to a Thursday. So there are 4 days of opportunities for you to start writing down things that come to mind. And it's now that I got the space to really delve into this with my partner, I want to. You coming in that much more intentional, that much like you're hot at that point. That is the sweet spot that I want the couples to be in. Is like I've set aside the time and we have topics that we are not addressing that we need to. Just because you had a strong foundation at one point in time does not mean because of that it just extends throughout the entirety of your relationship. It's something you got to continuously work at. And again, this is beyond just the roommate aspects and the day-to-day and this is paid and this is taken care of. It's like, are we checking in with each other fully on a more intimate level?
Great. Thank you. All right. Well, I'm listening. I hope everybody's listening. Communication is key. How about that active listening?
Active listening is super, super helpful. Some couples or communication patterns that are not helpful is like listening to respond. It's the opposite of active listening. I'm listening and waiting for that gap, right? That breath where I can just jump in with whatever. But no, are you really taking in and comprehending what your partner is telling you and making sure that you are responding? And a good rule of thumb to make sure active listening is happening is before you respond, you have to regurgitate what your partner said so that they can make sure that what they've told you is not misconstrued in terms of how you heard it. So it's okay, I've said this to you. Can you repeat back to me how you've taken that in? That's an example of how you make sure active listening is happening within your dialogue with your partner.
Thank you. Whenever I'm talking about active listening and I'm talking about communication to colleagues or people that I train at work, I'm always telling them about, like you said, the difference between listening to hear and listening to respond. And I tell them, I tell them that most people, they listen to respond, like you said, just waiting for that pause, waiting for that gap, waiting for that moment that they can defend themselves. And I describe it as somebody's talking to you, and instead of you actually listening to what they're saying so that you can hear and have some sort of maybe empathy or sympathy, or just the fact that you're taking in and letting them communicate something to you so that you can comprehend it or understand. I say that you are placing their voice in a cue. So it's called cueing. You're just placing their voice in a cue while your brain searches for a comeback response. And so the moment they stop talking, you don't even take the time to process what you're going to say. You just find something and you just blurt it out. And then sometimes you realize you just said the dumbest thing or something that had nothing to do with what the person said, or you just demonstrated that you did not listen or hear anything that person said. So I talk about that when I'm challenging people to participate in active listening instead of, like you said, listening to respond. So that's what I thought of when you were talking about.
If I can just add one quick thing, it's because this often happens with couples. Do you want to be right or do you want to get to a better place?
That
what's the focus? Like, communication is ascending, very simply, it's ascending as and receiving of signals. But that's what, in essence, it is. But when you're communicating and sending this, what is the intention behind it? Right? So are you trying to get to a better place? Is that what you're trying to communicate? Is that the dialogue and the person, the opposing party or the partner is trying to do? Is it about trying to get to a better place? Or is it about being right? Because if you want to be right, you can negate everything that is being said to you and continue to be combative, or you can say, I hear you, and let's keep working to get to a better place, because that's what I want. That's what makes our foundation stronger.
Wow, I heard that a long time ago. I can't remember who said it, but it was one of the most impactful things that I had heard. And basically, the person was saying, you know how much you've matured as a person when you give up your right to be right. So that's awesome. All right. Well, we're going to go to one more question before we take a break. We're going to talk about culturally responsive therapy. So the next question is, why is cultural context important in diagnosis and treatment, and how can providers and allies sensitively center culture?
Cultural context is important because what may be perceived as a symptom in relation to a diagnosis based off of a cultural context may not carry the same weight, essentially. So something that you're seeing as this is abnormal, this is not part of the average human experience, can be attributed to the background of a person and or their experience via culture. When I think about cultural competency, you don't have to have the lived experience, but to get to a point of truly understanding, it's how much data have you collected? That's really simply it. And something I often go to is, we live in this technology where information is literally a couple of inches from your body in a phone, and most phones have internet access, and you can ask the internet, ChatGPT, whatever you use, and say, I want to get more information. I need to consume more information because I'm dealing with somebody whose culture I have not experienced. Like, turn on that inquisitive hat and ask as many questions as you can into the open internet and forums. If there's nothing else I love to do when I come up against a culture that I am not familiar with, there's research and articles. That's one rung that I like to use. The second is, I sit on YouTube and I just listen to people share their experiences. That helps me understand and appreciate the full depth of their culture and the context that goes along with that. That's what builds in that cultural understanding. Again, I don't have to be, as an example, part of the Native community to have an appreciation and understanding of what are common issues, how they are raised in terms of just culture in general. The information is readily accessible. Take advantage of it.
Exactly. Thank you. Thank you. We're listening to Jordan Costin. We're having a great show. For those of you that are out there, I hope you're getting a lot from this conversation. And we don't want you to go anywhere. We're going to take a commercial break. We're going to be right back with Jordan Costin. So stay tuned.
Bold, urgent, and deeply human, cultural silence and wounded souls cracks open the quiet too many black men carry. Mark Tuggle brings raw honesty and courageous storytelling from 30 voices, intergenerational, diverse, unfiltered, turning stigma into conversation and pain into possibility. Read it, listen to it, and join the movement to heal, connect, and change the narrative. Listen to the stories, break the silence, start the healing. Get your copy at Amazon.com. Life is a beautiful, complex journey, but amidst the hustle and grind, how often do we stop and ask, are you okay? Introducing Are You Okay? A mental health and well-being check-in and conversation, the groundbreaking book by Dwayne Wiggins Jr. With a sincere heart, Dwayne takes you on a journey that reminds us all mental health matters. This powerful guide encourages open dialogue about mental well-being, showing how vulnerability fosters healing, connection, and understanding. It's a call to reflect, reach out, and break the stigma around mental health. Together, we can build a community rooted in empathy, support, and understanding. Start your journey today. Pick up Are You Okay? And spark meaningful conversations that truly matter. Because when we check in on each other, we grow stronger together.
All right, we're back with the awesome Jordan Costin. We're having a great conversation about mental health. And so we want to continue that. And we want to encourage those of you out there that might be thinking about it or just learning more about it to not be fearful of it, but to just be willing to be vulnerable and go on that journey to become the better version of yourself. Before we went on break, you were talking about cultural competence and being aware. And I just wanted to, excuse me, comment on cultural competence. The thing that I talk to a lot of people about is the same thing that I did my research on. Is a different term that actually derived from cultural competence, but it's called cultural humility. And the difference is cultural competence is described as an arrival state, whereas cultural humility is an ongoing, lifelong learning process, meaning that you never become an expert at somebody else's culture, not even your own. It's a continual learning process throughout your lifetime, and you have to be intentional about learning about different aspects of other people's culture, but more importantly, those aspects that are important to them, not just things that you want to learn about or that you think are important, but you actually take time to learn about aspects of that person and their culture that means a whole lot to them, and that's how that connection, you can build connection and relationship with the people that you around each and every day. All right, so building reflective practices. Next question. So can you give us a few daily reflection prompts and rituals to enhance emotional awareness and improve responses in relationships?
There are a few that I can definitely provide. But I want to preface it by saying this, and this is the work that is generally done with a clinician. While there are some quote unquote generic out of the box affirmations, of course, that can be used, the best ones are the ones that are tailored to you and your mindset. So that's the work that I tend to do with my clients is, yeah, I can give you 100+ affirmations, right? But let's use affirmations that speak to you and the place that you're in and will help you and fortify you. So a few that are top of mind is, I am secure. I'm secure in who I am is what that is referencing. I'm securing in the job that I have and the person that I love. It touches on so many different aspects of a person's life, but I am secure. Moving from that one, we have, I'm loved. Oftentimes, especially for those of us in the LGBTQ community, we feel that we're unloved. But knowing that you are loved, even by people that you don't know, there are organizations like Safe Space Nova that I founded that exist, that we showcase our love for the community, especially our youth, but the community as a whole. There's a place and people that love you without you even knowing or ever having touched them. So I am loved, I'm secure. Ooh, and this is a real powerful one. If everybody's paying attention, I am enough. Minority complex teaches us that no matter what we have obtained from an educational, for the accoutrement, the materialistic things, that we're never going to be enough. We're not going to amount to or be on the same level as others. So this in essence counteracts that I am enough on my own, in my own accord, what I've done and for who I am and what I represent. Those are just a few that are super helpful. I think that some people can take away and use and hopefully help change their mindset.
Okay, thank you. Barriers to care and how to navigate them. Next question. So, for example, stigma, access issues, and mistrust in mental health care systems create barriers to care. So, how can we overcome these obstacles to support and heal within the community?
Stigma speaks to your community, right? So, as a child with caregivers or parents, you have very little, if any, autonomy. You get more autonomy generally as you age, but that stigma is something that can come from your parents and or the community they surround themselves with, and inadvertently you. But as you leave the home, as you're out on your own, or as you're an adult, it's up to you to say, okay, if there is stigma, one, I need to put in the work to get past the stigma myself, because you are inherently conditioned possibly to take on some of that stigma, and to surround yourself with people who think differently. Mental health and seeking out therapy, there's nothing wrong with that. I do that on a regular basis. Again, you can go back to what's also online. There are more than enough data, empirical data that is out there that speaks to the difference and significance therapy is in a person's, when it comes to mental health that people are experiencing. Financial is another barrier. It's going to cost too much, or I don't have insurance. Surprisingly, most people don't know that therapists, not every single therapist, but there's a good portion of us, because at our hearts, we're just wanting to help. That's what a therapist is. You get the credentials, we are here to help. So we have in our community come up with what we call a sliding scale. So oftentimes we'll take on clients knowing that everybody's not either insured or doesn't have insurance that has coverage for mental health. So we create these pockets of, okay, we want to make sure that we're still touching those who are at a disadvantage when it comes to having an insurance that has full coverage, or making sure it covers the majority, if not all, of their mental health costs, and say, well, just come up with a sliding scale. I can't tell you how many times I do that, and somebody reaches out and it's, you know what, this is a need, right? This is a need. So reaching out and saying, okay, being honest and transparent and saying, this is my situation is, when you identify a mental health provider, or a therapist rather, saying what your situation is and saying, okay, if you are unable to, maybe they can't even take on any more clients. Do you have any referrals? Can you point me to the right direction? I encourage anybody who is seeking mental health assistance to ask and be as transparent as you can. There are organizations that are dedicated to doing this, and looking them up based off your local area. In terms of finding that right provider, I mean, we do our very best to be as detailed as we can about the audiences or the clients that we work with, so a person can feel comfortable, right? So all over my, and it's generally on Psychology Today, but it's on these pages that it says, okay, this is the area of expertise that I'm used to working in terms of communities and specific diagnosis. And where do you fit in with that? Because you got to find that right fit for you. That is extremely important. If there is something that I'm very consistent about, this isn't about me as an individual. It's about if I'm the right fit for you. Because if you go off of, I'm going to try this and it's not working, but you continue on, unfortunately, all you're doing is harming yourself. So finding the right provider, that's extremely helpful in terms of getting that progress that you're looking for and to move to that better station in life.
Thank you. Just to your point, there are insurance companies, like you said, that cover therapy sessions. And there are also providers that offer I would say discounts for certain things. Like I I have a therapist through BetterHelp. Yeah, BetterHelp, and they actually take insurance, and they also have a military discount. So if you want therapy, there are different avenues and ways that you can attend. Because, like you said, a lot of people, that's one of the first things that come up is cost. I think sometimes that comes up more than the fact that a person is afraid to be vulnerable. Um, Sometimes that comes up, but a lot of times, especially in the Black community, cost comes up a lot. Well, I can't afford that. And then sometimes just the fear of being vulnerable and trusting somebody with your lived experience. So I just wanted to point that out for those that are, on the program tonight, that if you are somebody that's considering therapy, just know, like Jordan said, that there are therapists out there, like he described, to sliding scale. Insurance company do cover, some insurance companies do cover therapy sessions. And then there's also other discounts that some providers offer as well. So don't forsake therapy for, any strange reason that you might come up
I just,
with. So
I,
go
I'm sorry.
ahead.
Add one little thing real quickly, because and I see this more and more each day with clients or potential clients, that the concern in seeking out therapy is that they haven't met a deductible. And by not meeting the deductible, that they are going to be on the hook for paying what is generally a therapist's full hourly rate. A lot of insurance companies, not all of them, but a good portion, have now moved to this place of there is a deductible, but there is mental health services separate of the deductible. You have to read the fine print. If you don't want to read the fine print, you can always just call and talk to the customer support or front desk of your providers. But a lot of times you are still going to get full coverage for your mental health without meeting the deductible, which means that you're just going to be responsible for a copay. So finding out, being informed, okay, advocating for yourself, asking your insurance providers, calling them, they have the information right at their fingertips. It's just a matter of finding it out for yourself.
All right. All right. We got two more questions. So advocacy and community action. The next question, given your work with Safe Space Nova and One Fairfax, One Fairfax, how can listeners translate learning into local advocacy?
Learning is gaining the knowledge that there is a gap that exists, right? So there's an underserved community and or population. You learn that just by gaining knowledge, right? You read the news, you read an article, you find out that information through whatever means. Advocacy is deciding you want to do something about it. You want to lift up a community. So it's making sure that you are putting yourself there to gain the knowledge, understanding like where are the gaps, who are the underserved, and then making that transition is, okay, well, I'm a person who has privilege that I can really use in that space, right? So if I know that people tend to listen to me when it comes to a specific area and or issue, maybe I can use that to my advantage and advocate for others who feel like they won't be listened to, won't be given the proper platform to do so.
Okay, so I see a question from Mark Tuggle. Mark, hello. Thank you for being on the show. He says, how can I deal with faith-based communities, images, and leaders who perceive mental health as devilish, sinful, and or weak?
I will say thank you for that question, Mark. It's a good one. So you have two routes, two like distinctive routes. I call this the fork in the road situation. And it's a question of what you think is going to work best for you. So I'm going to preface this question by saying this. We all as human beings imagine we have a battery in our back. That's why we have to go to sleep. There's a finite amount of energy you have to use every single day. I tend to use my energy as a therapist and nonprofit founder helping people. So in short, and I by no means mean to be offensive, but I have to protect that energy and I don't deal with foolishness. So if there is a meaningful conversation to be had, a meeting of the minds, if you will, where I can share what is empirical data or research that speaks to how mental health is relevant in terms of the issues and how you go about assistance, then I'm happy to have that conversation. It takes an open mind to be able to have that. And coming from a family that has deep religious roots, I understand that. If there is not a willingness and an openness to hear and acknowledge and accept information that is backed by research, I do not take the time to involve myself in that engagement and conversation. Again, I go back to, and this is why I preface the conversation, my energy is precious, and I would prefer to use it helping somebody versus being combative in a conversation with a person who's not open-minded. So the information, the data is out there, and it's presenting it to whoever the said person or people are. If they choose, regardless of that fact, to say, I still want to believe what I want to believe, how much can you really do with that?
Thank you, Jordan, for your response. Also, Mark, thank you for your question. Great question. And I've heard that question from a lot of people in a lot of different conversations and also statements as well. So thank you for bringing that up. Before we go to our last question, I want my producer to drop our link in the chat on the platforms. And if anybody's out there that wants to join the platform to ask a question, a relevant question to tonight's topic, or to make a general statement about what they have gleaned from the conversation, click on that link and come up on the platform, and we will bring you up and let you make your statement or allow you to ask your question. So while we're dropping that link out there on the platform, Jordan, I'm going to go ahead with my last question. It says, give us some, provide specific referral pathways, conversation starters for challenging discussions, and practical exercises listeners can apply immediately.
In terms of referral pathways, the easiest route to always going to go is, so that mental health providers have infiltrated social media, if anybody's paying attention. So now to clarify, not mental health coaches, by no means taken away from them, but if you were looking for a mental health provider, meaning they've gone through their rigorous training, they have a license. You can look up my name. I am licensed in Maryland, Virginia, and DC. So that way, you know that that person has gone through all of the training, no different than a doctor or a specialist. So making sure that the person who you're getting your information from is officially licensed. That is a pathway to get information, because tools that I've shared just as simply as I have on tonight's session are going to be available from other providers via the social media like network of Instagram or Threads or Facebook. I've seen it. I myself am not part of those communities just simply because of bandwidth, but I know that they exist. So you can always seek out that way. If you're looking for a therapist, every state has a board that licenses. So you can always go to your state board. The names are always going to vary, but if you live in the state of North Carolina, for example, you just put in the Google search or in a search engine, I want to find licensed professionals or licensed therapists in North Carolina, it will direct you to the site. So that is how you go about identifying what are key resources, mental health providers in your direct area. You can also, of course, look us up. And if you find some iteration of hashtag that says mental health providers, you can find that on the social media platforms, including TikTok. Conversation starters for difficult conversations. It's about how a person is feeling, right? So if a person is not regulated, and regulated is a clinical term. So if you are experiencing a lot of stress, if you're experiencing a lot of fear, it's all these adverse or negative emotions. It's going to be really difficult to have a conversation, a meaningful one, an effective one. So start off with like, how are you feeling? How am I feeling? If you are, for example, in a relationship and y'all just had an argument, generally both parties, one if not both parties, are going to be more frustrated. Not much effective communication can be in that type of space where you both have this heightened emotions. So asking the honest question, like, how are you feeling right now? Are you on a scale of 1 to 5? Are you at a 5, with 5 being the highest number? Okay. In order for us to have an effective combination, if you're at a 5, I'm at a 5, or we're both at a 5, let's come back to this. And then from there, okay, let's talk about what's truly on our minds once we've gotten past the emotions, because you will find that once you get out of that heightened emotional state, that you can have the most effective conversation that you need to with your friend, with your loved one, with the family member, whoever it is. So understanding and starting with where are you emotionally, so that that does not affect or impede you having effective conversation with whoever you may have a concern or issue with.
All right, thank you. So we're talking to Jordan Costin, a licensed clinical therapist and nonprofit founder. I hope everybody that's listening and viewing have taken a lot from this conversation. I don't know if the link went out. I didn't see it come up on the screen, but hopefully it went out. I'll give people probably a few more minutes to see if somebody wants to come up on the platform to ask a question or make a statement about what they have gleaned from tonight's discussion about mental health. I just want to say it was something that you said that I wanted to comment on. Hopefully it'll come back to me before we go off the air. But going back to your last name, did you come up with a word? I certainly came up with 2 words, and I'll say them, and then maybe you can, maybe you have some feedback on those words.
Okay.
One is calm, CALM, and then the other is cost, as in cost in, because mental health, anytime you want to change, it costs, right?
Absolutely. So
if you want to go to therapy, it costs. But more importantly, if you want to change, it costs. Go ahead.
So first, I want to address both of these because I love that you picked these. The calm. I am not inherently a calm person by nature. I move. So a question I often get is, Jordan, how in the world do you manage all of this? I worked in IT. I was in grad school. I founded a nonprofit. The list kind of goes on from there. I'm pretty hyper in terms of just doing all of these things and making sure what needs to happen does happen in the appropriate time and spaces to make sure there's successes in these different goals that I've set for myself. But I learned also when it comes to my client work, when I hit the chair, between the time I hit the chair and get out the chair, like that's my calm period. There is no hyperness that comes to that. So to your point, that was a great word to use. I'm a very, very calm person. Yes. And cost. The cost, and I guess cost in relation to my name, because I always tell people mispronounce my name. It is the cost of money, the number 10. Put those two together is how you get cost in. But for all it may cost you financially, what are the gains that come along with it, right? What are the gains? You sit in that chair, you put in that time. What are the gains that come along with it? So cost versus gains. For all that it may cost you in terms of time, how much it costs you in terms of effort, in terms of finances, what's the gain? So much can be attributed to just coming and putting in the work, so to speak.
All right. Well, Mr. Costin, this has been a great conversation. Tell everybody out there where they can find you outside of this platform.
Absolutely. So you can go on Psychology Today. You see my name there. If you just put in a search engine, Psychology Today, Jordan Costin. If you're looking for a therapist, or you want to know more referrals, so there's that. The nonprofit I founded is Safe Space Nova. It exists right outside the Washington, D.C. area. We provide positive programming for LGBTQ youth, 14 to 18 across City of Alexandria, Arlington County, Fairfax County, Loudoun County, and Prince William County as well. And I'm always happy to speak to folks, like just in the same way that I'm doing now. I love engaging with people because it's a way for me outside of just the one-on-one therapy to spread the word, the message, and the tools. So if you want to do that, you can always again, reach out to me. Just go on the Psychology Today page. that's fine as well. Because if I give you my email address, I promise you phonetically, it is just too much to list. But just know I will easily get back to you. And I am always happy to hear from folks who just say, like, I want to learn more, or I want you to come and speak to these folks, because I love sharing this information. This is why I changed my career path and said, this is the work that I want to do, and I find this more fulfilling. So please seek me out. You can also go on Instagram. I'm on LinkedIn, of course. It's easy me finding there with my name, but you can also go on my Instagram. It's at Affirmative Guy. Just very simply that, at Affirmative Guy. Those two words put together, you'll find messages. I tend to every week, 2 weeks or so, I just like to put some positive affirmations out there, right? So I did that just this weekend, and just sharing with my community. And if you want to be part of that community, reach out to me that way as well.
All right, Jordan, thank you for what you do. I did figure out what it was I wanted to comment on. Like you said, if you're seeking therapy, make sure that you check the folks that you are trying to get therapy from. Like he said, there are some people that may offer therapeutic services or whatever, but they're not actually licensed. There are a lot of I think you called it. Did you say coach therapists or therapist coaches? I don't know, but there are a lot of people out there that offer coaching services. I'm a coach myself. I'm actually a board certified coach. But first thing I tell people is I'm not a therapist. So my job is, if I can see that therapy is what you need, my job is to know when to refer. So I would be referring somebody to Jordan. But not today, but maybe one day I will be. But right now I'm just a board certified coach. So be careful, whether it's coaching or therapy or counseling or whatever it is that you might seek a service for, that you check to make sure the people that you select are that they are qualified or licensed, if that's what it requires to perform that service. So I just wanted to put that out there. You can find me on Facebook, X, Instagram, YouTube, Twitch, and also LinkedIn. DrWhitty Today airs every other Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Jordan, you had the honor of closing out my season 2, so I'm already going to throw out the invite for you to come back in season 3. So, but we'll talk about that after the show goes off. But tonight, folks, this is the last episode of season 2. We'll be back in January. I believe it's January the 6th. We've already got at least 3 or 4 shows that are already lined up. So, and I just got another, I guess I should say request, because I didn't do the invite. It was actually a request to be on the show. So I'm looking forward to season 3 already, and I hope you guys are too. So please be sure to stick in there. I will be playing some of the episodes from season 1 and season 2 on Mondays up until season 3. So you can still check out the shows. Also, if you look at the screen, I have some QR codes that you can scan. If you want to learn more about my website, you can scan the QR code for my website. Also, there's a QR code if you may want to book me to come speak at an engagement. There's a QR code for that. And I think there's also a QR code for DrWhitty's pop-up shop if you want to help support the platform. So once again, thank all of the viewers for coming out and engaging with us tonight. And I really look forward to seeing each and every person back here in season 3. All right. Do you have any last thing or last minute thing for our viewers?
No, I mean, you know what? I want to thank you for allowing me to come on this platform and really just express what I think is essential tools to help people as it relates to mental health. So Thank you, Dr. Whitty, for just allowing me the space. And I really appreciate it having this dialogue with you. And I look forward to more in the future.
All right. See you guys next season. Thank you for joining us on Dr. Whitty today. We appreciate your time, and your viewership is the heartbeat of our show. If you enjoyed this episode, hit the like button, share your thoughts in the comments, and most importantly, subscribe. Your support keeps us going, and we can't wait to have you back. So hit the notification bell to find out each time we air live. Until then, stay curious, stay inspired, stay motivated, and stay tuned.